The campus buzzed with quiet energy that night. Finals week had reduced the dormitory to a maze of flickering desk lamps and hushed footsteps. Lana Morse was one of the few students who hadn't packed up for the summer. Her roommate had left that morning, lugging a duffel bag down the stairs with no goodbye. Lana remained in room 321, nestled on the third floor of Elridge Hall, a brick building that still smelled faintly of old chalkboards and radiator heat. She had a routine, even as the world slowed around her. Every evening, she brewed green tea in her electric kettle and scribbled notes into her journal, a habit that felt more sacred than academic. But on this particular night, the kettle remained cold. Her chair was tucked in. Her bed was neatly made, and by morning she was gone. Campus police issued a standard missing person report by noon. The administration called it a likely runaway case. A few professors offered cautious sympathy. Her friends hung up posters across the quad with a faded photo of her smiling in the campus garden, but most students had already left for the summer. Within 2 weeks, her name faded from conversation, then from concern. What few knew was that the security system in Elridge Hall was new that year, equipped with motion sensors and a keycard entry log. Lana's card was used at 11:47 p.m. on May 3rd. It showed she entered the dorm alone. No other swipes registered from her room that night. No one left, and yet, by morning, her room was empty. Her parents arrived from Ohio 2 days later. They walked through room 321 with a quiet that terrified the custodians more than the silence itself. Her mother placed a trembling hand on the pillow and said nothing. Her father picked up the journal on the desk. It was blank, not torn or erased, simply blank, as if Lana had never written in it at all. Her laptop was closed but locked. The wallpaper showed a photo of her and another girl, both holding signs that read, "Justice for Kara." No one knew who Kara was. The college denied knowledge of any student by that name. Faculty said Lana had been an introvert, polite, smart, curious, maybe too curious. A week after her disappearance, the maintenance crew filed a strange report. A janitor claimed he saw Lana in the east stairwell hours after her recorded entry. She looked confused, barefoot, and was holding something that looked like a shoe. The camera in that corridor had malfunctioned conveniently. The janitor never showed up for his shift again. When police visited his apartment, they found it abandoned. His name wasn't on the leasing records. Human Resources said he was hired under a temporary emergency staffing program. There was no file, just a signature on a service log. The log entry read room 321. The handwriting was nearly identical to Lana's. As summer wore on, Elridge Hall sat quiet and unbothered. New students came in the fall. Room 321 was assigned to a new pair of freshmen. They didn't last long. One withdrew for medical leave before Thanksgiving. The other refused to stay in the room overnight. She reported hearing faint scratching behind the north wall and the sound of someone whispering her name. Maintenance checked for animals. None were found. The college quietly removed room 321 from the housing lottery the next year. By 2007, it became unofficially known as the Ghost Room. Students passed rumors, but no one remembered Lana's name anymore. Her case remained cold. Her parents stopped calling the college. In 2021, Elridge Hall was scheduled for renovation. The dorm had gone unused during the pandemic, and budget cuts postponed its reopening. A private contractor was brought in to handle structural updates. On a humid Tuesday morning, one of the workers began tearing down drywall near the old laundry chute beside room 321. His crowbar struck something solid behind the plaster. When the wall finally crumbled, the crew uncovered a small hollow cavity. Inside was a pair of canvas shoes, size 7.5. The soles were coated in dried reddish clay not native to the area. One shoe still had a faint smudge of black marker across the heel. The mark was a date, May 3rd. The second shoe was perfectly clean. The foreman reported the discovery to campus security, who notified the police. The shoes were removed and sealed for testing. It wasn't until a week later that a forensic analyst connected the shoes to a missing person case. The serial number on the heel matched a pair purchased by Lana Morse in 2004. The report noted traces of sedative compounds embedded in the fabric. When the shoes were handed back to the university for archival processing, they were accompanied by an envelope tucked inside one of them. The envelope was brittle from age but sealed. Its front bore 5 words: Room 321, Never Forget Me. Detective Carla Jennings reviewed the faded 2004 report at her desk with growing unease. The Lana Morse case had never officially been closed, but no new evidence had surfaced in nearly 2 decades. Now, there were shoes sealed inside a wall marked with a date that aligned perfectly with the night Lana vanished. Carla drove to the campus and walked the 3rd floor of Elridge Hall, slowly stopping by the reconstructed wall where the shoes were found. A laminated sign now covered the spot to commemorate the renovation project. Students passed by without a second glance. Carla pressed her hand against the cool plaster. Her instincts told her this was more than an abandoned item. Someone had hidden them on purpose. Not discarded, not misplaced, sealed, as if trying to bury a secret beneath brick and memory. She requested access to the digital archives and found a single image flagged from 2004. It was a blurry photo captured by an older campus camera system that predated the modern keycard sensors. Yet the image showed a lone figure standing at the campus pond at midnight. The timestamp was 3 hours after Lana entered Elridge Hall. The figure wore a hoodie and held something in their hand. Zooming in revealed what appeared to be a sock stained with a dark pattern. The evidence was inconclusive but alarming. Carla drove to the pond and requested a grid search with cadaver dogs. The water had long since stagnated into a shallow marsh, but the dogs picked up a scent within 10 minutes near a tree stump by the shoreline. A buried fabric scrap was unearthed. It was a sock. The blood on it was human, but it did not match Lana Morse. The forensic report stunned everyone involved. The blood belonged to a girl named Marie Townsend who had gone missing in 1996 from a nearby community college. Her case was buried in old police archives with no official ties to Elridge Hall. Carla cross-referenced yearbooks and housing logs and found something odd. Lana Morse had taken an elective in her freshman year that covered cold cases and local history. The class project was about Marie Townsend. Carla reviewed an interview summary Lana had written. It described a theory about secret passageways under Elridge Hall that once connected to other buildings. It was dismissed by faculty as rumor. Lana had even sketched a map in the report. That map was now gone. Digging deeper into campus facility logs from 2004, Carla noticed an anomaly. Lana's keycard had not only been used at 11:47 p.m. that night to enter Elridge Hall, but also 5 days later. The second entry had never been flagged. The card accessed a basement-level archive room in the old faculty wing. That wing was reserved for staff only, and Lana had no reason to be there. Security footage from that area had already been erased years ago, but an analog key log still existed. The door to the archive room had been opened by a card registered to Professor Harold Price. He had been quietly removed from his position in 2005 for misconduct involving student boundaries, though no criminal charges were ever filed. He had since moved out of state. Carla tracked him down in a quiet suburb outside Philadelphia. He was retired, graying, and slow to answer questions. When pressed, he admitted he had known Lana Morse. She had come to his office several times to ask about Marie Townsend. She believed the school had buried more than one missing person case, and she claimed she had found something physical in room 321. When asked what that was, he hesitated. He claimed it was a piece of plaster with initials carved into the back. She believed it was part of a wall that had once been torn down and rebuilt. Carla asked if he ever used his keycard to let her into the archive room. He denied it. When she asked if he knew anything about the shoes found behind the wall, he went silent. Back on campus, Carla examined the original maintenance logs from the spring of 2004. A new name appeared on a 1-week temporary assignment list: Miguel Turner. No birth date, no address. The handwriting used to sign in matched several of Lana's notes found in old class records. Carla asked herself whether someone else could have forged it. Then she wondered if Lana had impersonated someone to gain access to something. The more she uncovered, the more it seemed like Lana had staged parts of her own disappearance. Not to run away, but to leave breadcrumbs. She met with Lana's parents again and showed them the photos of the shoes and the envelope marked Room 321, Never Forget Me. Her mother broke down in tears. Her father said that Lana used to write notes to herself on her shoes with permanent marker. He said that when she was anxious, she would change into fresh shoes, even if she was just walking from one building to another. He remembered her once scribbling the phrase, "not real walls," on the side of a shoe before a counseling session. Carla realized then that Lana may have been trying to tell someone where she had gone, not just that she was gone. Carla returned to room 321 and measured the dimensions against the original blueprints. Something was wrong. The wall where the shoes were found did not align with the rest of the building's architecture. Behind the drywall, there was an extra 3-foot void between room 321 and the laundry chute. The blueprint from 1978 showed a narrow maintenance access corridor that had been walled off in the early 80s. That corridor was never logged as removed. It simply vanished from updated prints. She tapped the wall again. This time, she felt it differently. There was still space back there. The shoes were not all that was buried. Carla returned to the campus archives and requested access to storage records from the early 2000s. The university staff hesitated, but eventually directed her to a neglected basement room filled with unindexed boxes. Dust coated the metal shelves and the smell of mildew hung heavy in the air. She moved through them methodically until she found a box labeled Student Submissions, 2003-2005. Inside, between crumpled essays and old photos, lay a small leather-bound journal. A sticker on the inside cover read Morse L. The pages were unevenly yellowed and some stuck together, but what remained legible told a very different story from the official records. Lana had written about her belief in hidden corridors beneath Elridge Hall and about a series of unreported noises that came from her room at night. She claimed the sounds resembled footsteps pacing just behind her wall. She'd even documented specific times. The last entry was dated May 2nd. It simply read, "They know, I know." Carla brought the journal upstairs and began to cross-reference the times listed in Lana's entries with the campus maintenance schedules. She discovered that each time Lana heard the noises, a service request had been filed the following morning for unrelated minor issues in rooms adjacent to hers. Lights flickering, pipes rattling, thermostats failing. It created the illusion of regular repairs, but may have provided access for someone moving through the walls. She requested thermal scans of the building to confirm the current state of the structure. The scans revealed something alarming. A cold void ran vertically behind room 321 and continued down 2 floors. The void was uniform in shape and not connected to any known utilities. It was not on any schematic. Carla requested permission to cut into the wall. Before the team could begin demolition, a campus administrator interrupted the order. A faculty member had raised concern over damaging historical parts of the building. Carla demanded a meeting and found herself face-to-face with Professor Ellery Hart, an archivist with tenure and a carefully measured tone. He insisted that the wall in question contained layered paint dating back to the original build and that its historical value had not been adequately reviewed. Carla noticed a tremble in his hand as he spoke. She asked him if he remembered Lana Morse. He paused, then said he recalled a quiet student who visited his office twice, asking about the university's early psychiatric programs. When asked if he had access to any restricted records, he said those files had been sealed decades ago for liability reasons. He recommended Carla speak to the campus legal department. Carla grew suspicious and decided to track down a former janitor who had worked during the same semester Lana vanished. His name was Desmond Price, and he now lived in a retirement home near the state line. When she visited, he remembered the case immediately. He described Lana as determined and polite, always asking about forgotten corners of the building. One night he caught her near the east stairwell after hours. She asked him if he had ever seen anyone disappear through a wall. He thought she was joking, until she showed him a chipped panel behind a fire extinguisher on the third floor. Behind it was a vent cover that had clearly been removed before. Desmond reported it to his supervisor, but nothing came of it. A week later, he was transferred to a different building without explanation. Back on campus, Carla searched the hallway for the chipped panel. She found it easily. The cover had been painted over multiple times, but broke away with a gentle pull. Behind it was a narrow cavity containing a rusted hinge and a sliding panel mechanism. She crouched down and shone her flashlight into the space. It ran back about 3 feet and then dropped sharply downward. Someone had designed it to blend with the existing architecture. This was not an accident. Carla contacted her team and arranged for a more thorough excavation. The corridor was real. Lana had been right. The following morning, a construction team arrived with proper tools and began removing the interior wall layer by layer. By mid-afternoon, they had opened the shaft. It was tight but passable, descending through a hidden chute reinforced with concrete. At the base was a small space no larger than a walk-in closet, lined with discolored acoustic foam and bolted shelves. The air was stagnant. On the floor was a weathered blanket and a cracked mug. A nail protruded from the wall with a broken shoelace tied around it. Carla's stomach turned. Someone had been here, and they had been kept here. Inside the chamber, one of the workers found a second journal wrapped in plastic and tucked into a crevice between 2 bricks. The handwriting matched the first journal. This one contained shorter entries scribbled in haste. One entry read, "They come in the morning." Another read, "Room above watches." The final entry was almost illegible, but the date was clear. It was June 6th, over a month after Lana had vanished. Carla sat on the floor of the chamber, holding the journal in her lap. She did not speak. She could hear her own heartbeat. News of the hidden chamber spread quietly through the university, but the administration was quick to suppress speculation. The official statement described it as an outdated maintenance access point, with no relevance to any student activity. Carla disagreed. She ordered forensic testing of the blanket mug and shoelace found inside. Trace evidence revealed skin cells and fibers consistent with Lana Morse's DNA. There were also faint residues of a sedative compound on the fabric, the same type found embedded in the canvas shoes. This discovery deepened the possibility that Lana had not simply wandered into the chamber, but had been brought there against her will. Carla demanded access to archived student housing records from the early 2000s, hoping to find anomalies in roommate assignments or last-minute dorm changes. What she found was both mundane and disturbing. Lana's original roommate had been reassigned just 2 days before the semester began. No reason was documented. Her replacement, a girl listed as Emily Rowe, had no complete file in the student database. Her course registration was erratic. No professors remembered her. She appeared in only one class photo, seated 2 rows behind Lana. Carla enlarged the image and noticed something peculiar. Emily was looking directly at the camera, while everyone else looked at the professor. Her eyes were wide and fixed. When the photo was digitally enhanced, a small badge pinned to her coat became visible. It was not a student ID, but a visitor's pass. Carla submitted the name Emily Rowe to a background check system. The name returned no birth certificate, no driver's license, and no social security history prior to 2004. Determined to understand more, Carla returned to the archive wing of the university. She began combing through old orientation packets and dorm room rosters. One document caught her eye. It was an internal memo from 2003 stating that room 321 had been designated for temporary observation housing. No further context was provided. She traced the author of the memo to Dr. Everett Kamler, a retired administrator who had worked in student affairs for over 3 decades. Carla visited his home unannounced and showed him the memo. He hesitated before speaking. He said room 321 had once been used by a psychological research group partnered with the university. The program had been unofficial and was disbanded in the mid-80s after an ethics investigation. When she asked why it appeared again in 2003, he said he did not know, but admitted that certain traditions in academia have a way of resurfacing quietly. Later that evening, Carla received an unexpected call from a woman who identified herself only as May. She claimed to have been a graduate assistant in 2004 and said she remembered Lana very clearly. She described Lana as fearless but increasingly paranoid in the weeks before her disappearance. May said Lana once confided in her that she believed someone was entering her room at night while she slept. When Carla asked why May never reported this, she said she had tried, but the faculty member she spoke to told her not to get involved. Carla pressed for the name. May replied Professor Ellery Hart, the same man who had tried to block the wall's demolition. With this new lead, Carla returned to the office of Professor Hart. She noticed several plaques on his wall commemorating his contributions to academic preservation. One caught her attention. It was an award for excellence in research methodology presented by the Center for Psychological Inquiry. She asked him about the award and its relevance. He claimed it was from a study he participated in during his graduate years. Carla asked if the study involved human subjects. He said all proper guidelines had been followed. When she asked if Lana Morse had been part of any study, his eyes narrowed. He repeated that she was merely a student with an interest in campus history. Unconvinced, Carla contacted the university's facilities department to inquire about the structural evolution of Elridge Hall. An old blueprint surfaced from 1971 showing a staircase that once connected the third floor of Elridge Hall to a small room beneath the bell tower. That room was listed as a temporary record storage space but was later marked as sealed. Carla visited the bell tower that evening. The stairs had been removed, but traces of their foundation remained. With help from the maintenance crew, she accessed the space beneath the bell tower. Inside was a dust-covered desk, 2 metal chairs, and a stack of water-damaged files. One folder was labeled Cara T. The file included handwritten notes about sleep cycles, behavioral triggers, and exposure to sensory deprivation. The last page contained a photo of a young woman sitting in a room that looked exactly like the underground chamber. She was not Lana Morse. She was someone else, possibly Cara. The name that appeared on the sign Lana once held in her computer wallpaper. Carla realized now that the name Cara had not been random. It had been deliberate, a message, a pattern. Lana had discovered a history of girls being observed, manipulated, and possibly detained on campus under the guise of academic inquiry. She had tried to expose it, and she had been silenced. But she had also resisted. Every trace she left behind now formed a trail. The next morning, Carla received a call from the head of facilities. Renovation workers had discovered something behind another wall near room 321. It was a narrow pocket sealed with 2 layers of drywall and insulation. Inside, they found a sealed envelope and a crumpled Polaroid photograph. The envelope had yellowed with age and was marked with 5 words scrawled in thick pen. Room 321, never forget me. Carla immediately sealed it into an evidence bag and examined the photograph. It showed a grainy image of a girl who looked like Lana Morse standing in a dim corridor. Behind her was a door with no handle. Her face was turned slightly away, but her left hand was lifted, pointing to a light fixture above her head. Carla noted the time printed on the edge of the Polaroid. It read, May 7th, 2004. That was 4 days after Lana officially disappeared. Carla had the photo digitally enhanced by the state lab. When the image was cleaned up, something chilling became visible in the upper left corner. A blurred shape, possibly a person, appeared to be standing in the shadows behind Lana. The figure wore a white coat. A second light source in the image reflected off what appeared to be a clipboard. The lab technician estimated that the camera was mounted to a wall, possibly part of a hidden monitoring system. Carla compared the photo's background to the dimensions of the secret chamber beneath Elridge Hall. The fixtures matched. Lana had been alive in that space after her disappearance and was aware she was being watched. The sealed envelope was opened under lab conditions. Inside were several photos, none of which included Lana. They featured a different girl in various settings that resembled study rooms, small containment spaces, and soundproof booths. The girl's appearance changed slightly between photos, suggesting the pictures were taken over a long period. Her expression shifted from blank to visibly anxious. In one image, she held a sign marked with the number 47. Another showed her lying on a cot, eyes wide open. Carla sent the images through facial recognition software and finally received a hit. The girl was Vanessa Trask, a local teen reported missing in 1992. Her case was cold. She had been last seen leaving an academic summer program at the same university. The timeline meant that the room behind room 321 had likely been used for decades. Carla compiled the photos and submitted a warrant request to review all academic programs affiliated with the Center for Psychological Inquiry. She focused on a project called Bounded Minds, listed in a 1990 grant application. The proposal described experimental environments for studying long-term cognitive resilience and isolation. The signature on the proposal was Ellery Hart. He had been a graduate student at the time. When Carla confronted him with the images, he refused to speak. His lawyer arrived within the hour. Carla filed formal charges for obstruction and began preparing a full investigative case with the district attorney's office. That evening, a quiet knock sounded at Carla's door. An elderly woman with sunken eyes introduced herself as Judith Faulkner, a retired maintenance supervisor. She said she had read about the investigation in the local paper and felt compelled to speak. Judith described how she had once been asked to paint over a section of wall in Elridge Hall that had no prior damage. When she asked why, she was told the wall had been written on. She remembered seeing faint red letters as the primer dried. They read, "They kept her in the walls." Judith had felt sick afterward. She reported the incident, but her report was later removed from the official records. She retired the following year. With pressure mounting, the university reluctantly opened additional records. A campus security guard came forward and admitted that the camera system in Elridge Hall had never been completely erased. An off-site backup server had been quietly storing security footage for archival purposes. The IT department retrieved partial footage from the night of May 3, 2004. One clip showed a man in a janitor uniform escorting Lana down a side hallway toward a maintenance door. His face was obscured, but his ID badge had the name M. Turner. Carla froze. That name had appeared in the original logbook Lana once signed. The implication was clear. Lana had posed as a janitor to enter certain rooms, but someone else had also used that identity to move her through the building. The figure in Lana entered the hallway at 11:53 p.m. No footage showed them exiting. Carla dug through more records and found an emergency access list filed the following week. One name stood out: Harold Price. The disgraced professor had requested entry to the faculty archive room during the same week Lana's keycard was used. Carla returned to the archive room with a search warrant. Behind a false cabinet in the back corner, her team discovered a small safe. Inside were old videotapes labeled with dates ranging from 1989 to 2004. One was marked L. Morse. The tape was grainy, but clear enough to show Lana seated in the hidden chamber, her hands folded, and her gaze fixed on the corner where a red light blinked steadily. The next few days blurred into sleepless hours of cataloging. Carla watched the full tape marked L. Morse 3 times. Each time revealed something new. Lana sat mostly silent in the footage, never crying, never panicking, only blinking slowly and shifting her posture every few minutes. On the second hour of the tape, she reached behind her and retrieved a sheet of paper folded several times. She stared into the blinking red light as if she knew someone was watching. Then she held the paper up. It read one word in black ink: "Stop." Carla paused the tape and enlarged the image. The corner of the paper had a college letterhead. She ran it through the archives and found it matched the style used by the university's Department of Behavioral Studies in 2003. Lana had written her message on official department stationery. It was a final act of defiance recorded for the camera. Carla organized a case report that included both Lana and Vanessa Trask. With the district attorney's office involved, warrants were issued to seize more university property. Dozens of boxes filled with decades-old academic files were removed from the psychology department's basement. Among the documents was a letter dated October 1991, referencing the continuation of Bounded Minds under a discretionary grant administered through private funding. The signature on the letter was barely legible, but one name repeated in the memo: Everett Kamler. Carla returned to his residence and confronted him again. This time, she brought a copy of the letter. He read it silently before closing his eyes. He admitted the program never truly ended. It had changed names and staff, but its intent remained. He claimed it had been for research for understanding trauma and resilience. He said they had not meant to hurt anyone. Carla told him they had buried a girl in a wall. As news of the investigation spread beyond campus, more former students began coming forward. Some described hearing rumors in the early 90s of rooms used for observation. One woman named Rachel Lee told Carla she had been asked during her freshman year to participate in a study on sleep behavior. She agreed at first, but after the second session she dropped out due to what she called unexplained anxiety and hallucinations. She remembered the sessions were conducted late at night in a windowless room on the lower floor of Elridge Hall. She never learned the purpose of the study. Years later, she saw a news article about Vanessa Trask and recognized her from the building. She had kept quiet out of fear. Carla's team cross-referenced names from the study participants and discovered that several had received anonymous grants or tuition waivers shortly after their involvement. The payments came from a foundation listed under a shell corporation linked to private donors with connections to experimental research. One such donor had also contributed to the Center for Psychological Inquiry. Carla traced the flow of money and uncovered that the foundation had been dissolved in 2005, the same year Professor Harold Price was removed from his post. It became evident that the program's collapse had been orchestrated to cover its tracks. The final participants, including Lana, were never documented officially. They had been absorbed into a hidden system that operated outside the oversight of ethics committees. Back at the station, Carla reviewed transcripts from a whistleblower report filed in 2006. The report had been dismissed at the time for lack of evidence. It described a student named L who had discovered a camera in her dorm room and suspected surveillance. The student reported that her roommate often left at strange hours and returned with unwashed clothing and notes she refused to share. The writer described feeling watched even in her sleep. Carla noted the report had been submitted anonymously but included handwriting samples. A forensic analyst matched it to a known associate of Lana's named Camille Hastings. She had since moved out of state and changed her name. Carla reached her by phone and explained the investigation. Camille fell silent for several seconds before admitting she had seen something that still haunted her. Camille said that during a group study session in spring 2004, Lana had confided that she had discovered a hidden mirror panel behind her wardrobe. She believed someone had been watching her from the other side. When Camille laughed nervously, Lana had stared back without blinking and said they study people like bugs. Camille thought she was exaggerating. A week later, Lana vanished. Camille never told anyone, fearing she would not be believed. She tried to file the report later, but felt dismissed by campus authorities. Carla thanked her and documented the call. It confirmed the presence of surveillance infrastructure that had not been accounted for in the dorm's blueprints. To verify the claim, Carla returned to room 321 with an engineer. They used thermal imaging and acoustic sensors to inspect the wall behind the old wardrobe. The devices picked up a hollow cavity approximately 6 inches deep that ran the length of the wall. When they carefully removed the panel, they found a narrow crawl space no wider than a person's shoulders. At the end of the space was a two-way mirror stained with dust but intact. On the floor of the crawl space was a power outlet and a discarded cassette recorder. Carla's breath caught as she reached for the recorder. It had a tape still inside. The label was handwritten. Carla returned to the station with the cassette recorder held in both hands as though it were made of glass. She had already called the lab to confirm they could safely digitize the tape. It was old and brittle, the label worn to the edge. There was no name, only the single letter L written in black marker. While she waited, she reviewed the rest of the files found near the two-way mirror. Most were blank notepads and old masking tape, but one page caught her attention. It appeared to be part of a checklist. One item was circled in red. Observe vocal shifts during stress response. The handwriting matched that of Ellery Hart from a syllabus he had written years earlier. It confirmed his direct involvement, but the tape might offer Lana's own words at last. The digital conversion was completed within the hour. Carla sat alone in the audio lab with the door closed. The voice that filled the room was soft and clear. It belonged to Lana. She spoke slowly, deliberately, as if she were aware that each word mattered. She said she had not been allowed to leave the room for 4 days. She said the lights remained on at all hours. She described hearing someone breathing on the other side of the mirror. She said she was given food without speaking to anyone. At one point, she whispered that they had taken her shoes because they thought she might try to climb. She paused often, but never cried. Toward the end of the recording, her voice grew thin. She said, "If this is ever found, I want someone to ask why they never stopped." Her final words were not a plea, but a demand. "Tell them I remembered everything." Carla sat in silence after the tape ended. The recording alone was enough to open a federal case, but she knew the deeper story was larger than Lana. The files showed patterns, layers of suppression and redirection. Faculty transfers, sudden retirements, missing records. The presence of drugs found in Lana's shoes now took on chilling new context. A toxicology report revealed a compound similar to benzodiazepine known to reduce memory retention. Carla believed they had been trying to study not just isolation but erasure. Lana had resisted even that. The evidence of her resistance was everywhere. She shared the recording with the district attorney, who immediately approved subpoenas for former faculty involved with the Center for Psychological Inquiry. Carla re-examined the archived course rosters from 2003 and discovered one more anomaly. A teaching assistant named Ava Kessler had disappeared from university records in early 2005. Her position had never been filled again. The contact number listed in her file was no longer active, but a home address led to an apartment outside Albany. Carla drove there the next day and found an older woman with dark eyes and a hesitant voice. She admitted she had once worked under Professor Hart. She said she left because she feared what was happening would one day destroy her. Ava described overhearing conversations in which faculty debated how long a subject could endure in confined observation before irreversible psychological shifts occurred. She said Lana had been one of the only students to ask questions about the old studies. Lana once approached her and asked if room 321 had ever been used for something else. Ava told her no. She regretted it ever since. She claimed she saw a man in a white coat escort Lana down the south corridor late one evening, but when she asked about it later, she was told she had imagined it. A week later, she found a note in her office drawer. It said, "Your memory is not perfect either." Carla filed Ava's statement and matched it against prior accounts. Patterns emerged. False memories. Suppressed timelines. A system built not just on hiding people, but on questioning their own recollections. Back at the university, new maintenance reports surfaced from a recently vacated office in the Humanities building. During carpet replacement, a worker found a sealed envelope beneath the floorboards. It contained another photo of Lana, but this one was different. She stood outside in daylight on the west side of campus. A date stamp on the bottom read June 12, 2004. That was over a month after she disappeared. She wore different clothes. Her hair was cut shorter. She held a spiral notebook in one hand and looked directly at the camera. Carla checked the image's metadata. It was authentic. This raised a new possibility. Lana had been released briefly, or she had escaped. Either way, someone had captured her in that moment and hidden the evidence. Carla contacted former students from the 2004 summer semester. Most remembered little, but one student, Tyler Green, said he remembered a quiet girl sitting outside the library one afternoon. He said she was barefoot and looked disoriented. When he offered her water, she said nothing and walked away. He had always wondered about that encounter. Carla showed him the photo. He confirmed it was her. The time between her disappearance and that moment suggested that Lana may have tried to document her experience, but had not been able to reach safety before being silenced again. That notebook in her hand had never been recovered. A second search of the underground chamber was conducted with new imaging tools. Behind the foam padding, a hidden recess was found. Inside was a torn backpack containing clothing, a broken pen, and a waterproof pouch. Inside the pouch was a page ripped from a journal. The writing was smudged, but 2 lines were legible. "They think I am forgetting. I only pretend." The morning fog hung over the campus like a warning. Carla arrived with a structural engineer and a team of forensic architects to investigate the new theory. If Lana had been seen weeks after her disappearance and had even reappeared briefly outside, then perhaps the chamber below room 321 was not the only space used to confine her. Carla reviewed the early blueprints of Elridge Hall again. One document dated 1952 mentioned an underground utility space directly beneath the chamber already uncovered. In modern schematics, that area was labeled as reinforced foundation with no point of access. Carla ordered a ground-penetrating radar scan. The results revealed a rectangular hollow nearly identical in size to room 321. It sat nearly 8 feet beneath the previously discovered cell. There were no stairs leading to it. The structure had no doors. The construction crew began breaking through the concrete slab below the first chamber. They worked cautiously, aware they might uncover evidence crucial to the case. After hours of drilling and dust, a trapdoor was revealed. It had no handle. Carla stood over it, staring at the metal bolts that sealed it from above. She ordered it removed. The hinges resisted at first, then groaned open. The air that rose from the opening smelled stale, mixed with something metallic and dry. A flashlight beam cut through the darkness and illuminated a second room. This one had no furniture, no blankets, no foam lining, just a single light fixture in the ceiling and a drain in the floor. The walls were lined with smooth plaster, unbroken and blank. Carla climbed down slowly. Her boots echoed against the bare concrete. The silence was heavier here, oppressive and thick. In the far corner of the room lay a small object. It was a notebook. Carla picked it up with gloved hands. The cover had faded, and water damage had warped the pages. But the writing inside was unmistakable. It was Lana's. The entries were short and erratic, as if written under duress. One page read, "I am below the room that forgot me." Another read, "They think silence is enough." On a final page, Lana had drawn a crude floor plan of the chambers above and below, along with arrows pointing toward a word she underlined twice: exit. Carla reviewed the drawing carefully. One of the arrows pointed to a wall that did not appear connected to any known structure. She turned to the team and requested thermal imaging along that wall. The scan revealed a long vertical shaft leading away from the room. It was narrow and unlit, likely an old service duct that had been sealed over the years. Carla decided to follow it. The crew broke through the wall and revealed a narrow tunnel reinforced with brick. The tunnel sloped upward, stretching for nearly 30 yards before opening into a grated alcove in the back of a mechanical storage closet on the opposite side of the building. The alcove had once connected to an elevator maintenance shaft, now defunct and sealed. Carla noted the rusted grate-bore scratch marks along the inside, as if someone had tried to pry it open from within. A single shoelace, frayed and brittle, hung from one of the screws. It was knotted tightly, then severed. Carla stared at it for a long time. This had been the path Lana tried to take. Whether she succeeded remained uncertain. Carla contacted a forensic pathologist to examine the shaft for hair fiber and blood traces. Within hours, they confirmed the presence of skin cells matching Lana's DNA near the grate. The pattern of abrasion suggested she had tried to force her way through. Carla returned to the trapdoor and searched the lower chamber for more hidden recesses. Behind a false corner near the ceiling, she found a camera lens embedded in the plaster. The wiring ran upward through the ceiling and into a small conduit box connected to the faculty archive wing. It proved beyond any doubt that the room had been monitored in real time from within the academic building. The lens was damaged, likely from age, but the hard drive connected to it remained intact. The IT team extracted fragmented footage, many segments corrupted, but one still played. The video showed Lana in the room, seated with her knees pulled to her chest. She stared upward at the ceiling. Her lips moved, but the footage had no sound. She seemed to whisper something repeatedly. When Carla enhanced the clip and ran a lip-reading algorithm, the software translated her repeated phrase. The words were, "Let me out, let me out, let me out." Later that night, Carla sat in her office reviewing the notebook found below room 321. One page stood out. The ink was smeared, but the sentence was readable. It said, "If you find this, they never stopped. This place remembers more than I can." Lana had known she might not survive. She had left these pieces for someone to gather to speak when she could no longer speak for herself. Carla placed the notebook beside the tape recorder, the photograph, the journal page, and the envelope. Each item was a voice. Each one spoke of confinement, of silence, of the refusal to forget. As Carla pieced together the final timeline of Lana's disappearance, one detail still haunted her. The mysterious roommate listed in the 2004 housing records under the name Emily Rowe had been the first person to move into room 321 that semester. Lana had not known her before school began. Carla now suspected that Emily's presence had been part of the experiment. No evidence of her registration as a student had been found, and her name did not appear in any social or academic records beyond that single semester. Carla filed a federal records request and received a response days later. A fingerprint match taken from a door handle inside room 321 in 2004 led to a different identity. The woman who had lived with Lana had not been a student at all. Her real name was Cassandra Drew, a psychiatric patient listed as missing from a behavioral health facility less than 40 miles from campus. The revelation cracked the case open again. Carla contacted the facility and learned Cassandra had disappeared in late 2003 under strange circumstances. Her file had been marked inactive without follow-up. Further investigation revealed that Cassandra had participated in a state-funded program involving cognitive behavior monitoring and had been transferred to a private entity for continued observation. That entity was later connected to the same shell corporation that had funded the Bounded Minds program. Carla confronted the university's legal counsel with this information, demanding to know how a psychiatric patient had ended up posing as a student and sharing a dorm with Lana. The university launched an internal review, but Carla knew it would be slow and strategic. She focused on locating Cassandra. The trail led her to a halfway house in Vermont where Cassandra had reportedly lived under the alias Ellie Rayburn until 2010. There, Carla met a caretaker who recalled Cassandra's erratic sleep patterns and obsessive behavior. She would write names on her walls, then erase them only to write them again the next morning. One of those names was Lana. The caretaker said Cassandra had once asked if people inside walls could breathe. She was eventually transferred to a private home under new guardianship. Carla requested the address and arrived at a quiet rural property surrounded by pine trees. An elderly woman answered the door. Her hands trembled as she invited Carla inside. She said Cassandra no longer spoke much. She simply sat by the window and watched the trees. Carla waited while the woman brought Cassandra out. Her eyes were glassy but focused. She seemed both present and far away. Carla showed her a photo of Lana. Cassandra did not react at first. Then she reached for the image, touched it lightly, and whispered something barely audible. Carla leaned in and heard her say, "I thought she was like me." Carla gently asked what she meant. Cassandra said they told me to watch her. They said she needed a friend. Carla asked who they were. Cassandra looked away. Her fingers began tapping a pattern on the table. It matched the rhythm heard in the audio tape Lana had recorded from the chamber. A slow, steady knock. Carla realized Cassandra had been inside that program not as a subject alone, but as an observer embedded within it. Cassandra's fragmented memories revealed more than expected. With care and patience, Carla asked whether Cassandra remembered the hidden mirror of the chamber or any instructions she'd been given. Cassandra said she remembered numbers. The number 47, the number 321, the number 6. When asked about the number 6, she said that was how many days they left her in silence before Lana arrived. Carla documented every word, aware that Cassandra's testimony might not be admissible in court, but could lead to further evidence. One phrase Cassandra repeated struck her deeply. She kept saying, "I left the notebook in the drain." Carla returned to the lowest chamber and ordered a forensic plumber to extract the drainage pipe system. Near the bend, lodged between rusted joints, they found a small bundle of plastic. Inside was a waterproof sleeve containing a final page from Lana's journal. The ink had bled, but most of the writing remained. Lana had written about the days she spent beneath the building. She said she had heard someone whisper through the grate. She called her the girl with the same eyes. She wrote that she knew the girl was not there by accident. The entry ended with a message. "If they made her watch, I forgive her. Tell her I know she tried." Carla returned to Cassandra and read the words aloud. For a long moment, Cassandra did not speak. Then she began to cry. Not loudly, not broken, but soft and continuous, as if something inside her had finally been released. Carla sat beside her and placed the recorder between them. She did not press for more answers. She simply let the silence settle. A different kind of silence than what had lived in those walls. Back in her office, Carla laid out the full timeline. Lana had arrived at the university unaware of the experiment. She had asked questions, followed clues, uncovered buried records. Cassandra had been placed in the room with her under false pretenses, likely as a monitor, possibly also as a manipulated subject. Lana had been taken held and observed. She had attempted escape, recorded her testimony, mapped her location, and left behind clues no one followed in time. But she had known they would surface. Her writings spoke not only of fear, but of strategy. She had outwitted them long after her voice had been silenced. Rain swept across the empty courtyard of Elridge Hall, as Carla stood beneath the scaffolding now covering the eastern side of the building. A tarp flapped loosely in the wind where the wall near room 321 had been partially removed for structural investigation. The building was scheduled for permanent closure and would soon be handed over to an independent commission for historical preservation and forensic analysis. Carla watched the darkened windows flicker with passing headlights and thought of how many years those panes had concealed a truth so carefully buried it had taken 17 years and 1,000 fragments to bring to light. Yet, Lana's voice had endured. It had made it past concrete silence and into the world beyond. The files were now complete. The records would go public. And still, Carla felt something unfinished, something more intimate than evidence and stronger than closure. She returned to her office and opened the final box retrieved from the university's deepest archives. The box had been sealed without label, buried beneath unrelated correspondence from the early 2000s. Inside, Carla found a single VHS tape with no markings and a cassette labeled LM Final Copy. She played the cassette first. The audio crackled before Lana's voice emerged, faint and tired but deliberate. She said, "If someone is listening, then I made it past them. If this is my last entry, then let it say what I could not finish. I was not alone. I was not broken. I was made to feel small, but I did not become small. I remembered who I was each day, even when no one else did. And if they built this place to erase me, then let them know I filled every corner of it with my name. Let them know the girl they buried is the girl who left this behind." Then there was silence. The tape ended. Carla pressed stop and sat motionless, letting those words settle not only in her thoughts, but in the walls around her. She inserted the VHS tape next, unsure what it would reveal. The grainy image that appeared on screen showed a room not yet seen in the investigation. It was a wide space, concrete and shadowed, filled with metal chairs facing a single projection screen. Rows of individuals sat upright, each wearing headphones and facing forward. No one spoke. At the front stood a tall man holding a clipboard. He gestured toward the screen and pressed a remote. The projection flickered to life. The image was Lana seated in the chamber beneath Elridge Hall. Her head turned slowly toward the camera. Her eyes did not blink. The projection showed her repeating the phrase, "I remember," over and over. In the viewing room, the participants did not react. The tape ran for 15 minutes. Carla realized it was part of a training or review exercise used by faculty or researchers studying subject response. They had watched her suffering, analyzed it, tested it, and returned to their lives. But Lana had never left that room. Carla submitted the video as final evidence. Federal charges were now pending against former staff members of the university, as well as affiliated donors and corporate liaisons. The Bounded Minds program was exposed fully. Media coverage spread nationwide and prompted a series of investigations into psychological research ethics on academic campuses. Survivors of related programs came forward, including some who had been dismissed as unstable or delusional. Cassandra's testimony, though incomplete, played a key role in verifying procedural misconduct and unauthorized experimentation. The university issued a formal statement of regret, but Carla knew it would never be enough. Some things, once broken, could not be restored, only remembered fully and with clarity. She returned to the building one last time before it was sealed for investigation and walked the full length of the 3rd floor. The door to room 321 had been removed. The frame stood open like a wound. Inside the room, sunlight filtered through the cracked blinds and cast a faint square of gold across the floor. Carla stepped into the center and looked at the wall where the mirror had once hidden another set of eyes. She touched the paneling gently and felt nothing unusual, but her mind saw everything clearly. Lana sitting at her desk writing against time. Lana hearing footsteps beyond the plaster. Lana waking in the middle of the night, unsure if the silence meant safety or surveillance. And still she resisted. She mapped, she wrote, she recorded, she forgave. Carla stepped back and whispered thank you, though she knew no one would hear it. The room did not echo. It simply listened. The commission later transformed the chamber into a memorial. Not a polished museum or static exhibit, but a quiet place where names were etched into the concrete walls. Not just Lana's, but the others too. Vanessa Trask, Cara T. Dozens of initials that had been erased from records now reclaimed in stone. Visitors arrived in small groups. Survivors left notes folded into cracks. Some left shoes at the entrance in silent tribute, 1 pair each, clean, empty, facing forward. Carla never gave interviews, but she visited every month. She would sit at the back of the memorial chamber and read the notebook pages recovered from the drain. She read them aloud to the walls. She said the names softly and slowly until the building seemed to breathe with her. On the 1st anniversary of the memorial opening, Lana's parents attended a candlelight vigil. They stood beside Carla in front of the chamber. Her mother held a photo of Lana from her high school graduation. Her father said nothing, but wore the same watch he had worn the day he searched room 321. A student stepped forward and read aloud from Lana's final entry. She said, "Memory is not just survival. Memory is rebellion. Memory is proof that silence was never compliance." As the candles flickered, the air filled with that message, and the crowd did not move until the flame in Lana's hand-drawn vigil candle burned out completely. Carla returned home that night and placed the last tape inside her safe. She locked it gently and turned off the lights. Before sleeping, she took one final look at her case file on Lana Morse. It was thick now, filled with layers of truth that had once been buried beneath lies. She placed a single label across the top in black pen, "Not forgotten," and beneath it she wrote the date of Lana's disappearance and the date of the last tape. between them spanned 17 years, but within them lived a story too large for any room to contain. It had passed through walls. It had crossed silence. It had found its voice. If this story moved, you consider liking and subscribing to support more investigations like this one. We would love to hear your thoughts on the plot and where you're watching from. Drop a comment below and join the conversation.